24:19. Door closed behind them. I stayed seated, listening to their footsteps fade down the hall. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt a strange quiet settle over the apartment. Quiet like after you shut off a water valve and still hear the last little drips in the pipes. That was the sound of dependency dying, and of a mother beginning to learn how to love herself. I didn't have to wait long for the play to begin. Only 3 days after that shutoff morning, the phone rang. Adrian's name lit up on the screen, along with a photo of him grinning beside his wife and kids, the picture I kept as my wallpaper for years but deleted long ago. I let it ring to the third chime before picking up. His voice was gentle. Almost too gentle, like he was reading a rehearsed line. "Mom, I just wanted to check on you. You've been quiet lately. Are you eating enough?" I had to pause a few seconds not to laugh. My Adrian, the one who hadn't asked, "Mom, how are you?" in 3 years, suddenly cared about my nutrition. I answered evenly. "I'm fine, thanks for asking." He paused, then continued, his tone almost too smooth. "I realize I've been awful. You've carried so much for us. I just want you to know I'm grateful." Someone who didn't know better might be moved. But I could hear paper rustling on his end, and Tess's faint whisper behind him prompting something. I spoke slowly to let them believe I was softening. "I know, Adrian. Thank you. Take care of yourself." I hung up and checked the time. 37 minutes later, the phone rang again, this time a blocked number. A young voice came through, trembling slightly like recitation. "Hi, Grandma. It's Maya. I just wanted to tell you about my day at school." I leaned back and listened as my granddaughter talked non-stop about math class, a new teacher, a science project. Every detail was too perfect, too polished, like a carefully assigned script. I let her finish, then asked gently, "Maya, who told you to call Grandma?" A brief silence, then her voice dropped. "Dad said you were sad. Mom said to call so you'd know the family still loves you." I sighed softly. "I understand, Maya. Listen, I'll always be your grandma. Do you hear me? Whether the adults are upset or not, that never changes." "Yes. Do you want to keep talking or do you have homework to do?" "I have homework." "Then go study, sweetheart. I love you." "I love you too." I hung up, my heart sinking. I wasn't angry at Maya, only tender toward her, a child being pulled into a grown-up performance with her own clear little voice. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. The delivery guy stood outside, arms full of white lilies and pale pink roses, so big he had to angle them through the doorway. A card, tied with silver ribbon, read, "Thinking of Mom, with all my love, Tessa." I set the bouquet on the table, its sweetness almost choking. I remembered that even on my birthday, this woman had never sent flowers, never even called. Now that the money was shut off, she suddenly remembered motherly love. I snapped a photo of the bouquet, sent it to Harold with a note. "First signal. They've started performing." 2 days later, Tessa called. Her voice was bright, tinged with a shy friendliness, like she was trying to bond. "Mom, I know it's a busy week, but I'd love to take you out for a girls' day. Spa, nails, a little shopping. What do you think?" I smiled lightly. The same person who once mocked my dress as outdated in front of her friends now wanted a girls' day. "Sounds lovely, Tessa, but I'm a bit tied up this week. I'll check my calendar." "Okay, take your time. I just want us to be closer. I've been thinking a lot." Her voice trailed off. Then the line clicked. I watched the afternoon light filter through the vase on the table, lily petals making soft halos. Beautiful, yes, but beauty with a price tag. And I knew with Tessa, everything had a price, even affection. On the 8th day, the post office delivered a pale blue envelope. The scrolled line read, "To Grandma Estelle from Owen." Inside was a handwritten note. The penmanship was even, spotless, oddly so, unlike the hurried scrawl I'd seen from him on Christmas cards. "Grandma, I think you're wonderful. Sorry I don't say it more. I hope to see you soon. You're the best grandma in the world. I love you, Owen." I read it again and again, studying the strokes. Every letter was overly sculpted, the lines too straight, as if someone had guided his hand until it was perfect. It made me smile and ache at the same time. That evening, I called Adrian. He picked up fast, hope in his voice. "Mom, I knew you'd call. I'm guessing the flowers moved you, right?" "The flowers are lovely, and Owen's letter is sweet," I said slowly. "But both smell of staging. Mom, what are you saying?" "Adrian, listen to me clearly. If you truly want to repair this, start with honesty. Don't use the kids as tools to ask for money. Don't hand them scripts to read. I've lived long enough to hear the difference between truth and performance." Silence on the other end. I could picture him glancing at Tessa, signaling her to be quiet, afraid I might hear something. "There's just one thing I want you to remember," I added softer. "If these 30 days are real, I'll know. If they're just a show, I'll know that too. And then this door will close for good." I hung up before he could answer. Late at night, I brewed orange blossom tea and sat in the dining room, the warm lamp casting gold over the wood table. I reached under the table to the tiny recorder I'd stuck there last week. A small green light blinked, still powered, still working. I slipped on headphones and replayed the morning they came over. Tessa's sharp voice. "That's our money." Adrian's sigh. "Mom, at least tell me what's going on," then me, steady calm. Hearing myself, I felt no regret. I opened a new audio file, the calls from today, every tone, every breath, every awkward pause from my son, my daughter-in-law, my grandkids captured. Part of me felt sad. I once dreamed our family would keep warm memories, not cold audio files. But another part knew this is the truth. And truth, even when cold, deserves to be kept more than sweet lies do. Have you ever had to smile through a play you never signed up to watch? If you have, leave a line. Just one line. I want to know how closely you recognize that feeling. I set the headphones down, turned off the lights, leaving only the small glow over the stove. Outside, New York slipped into spring rain, cars slicing through puddles. I closed my eyes and listened to the rain mingle with the even hum of the recorder. I thought of Grant and what he once said. Never confuse love with bribery. Once people know you fear loneliness, they'll turn it into a weapon. I smiled. Grant was right. But maybe this time the weapon is in my hands. The next day, I woke early. Thin sunlight slid through the curtains. I set the kettle on, opened my laptop, and backed up every recording to a separate drive. Folder name, opening act. I knew this was just the first scene. And the writer this time wasn't Adrian or Tessa, it was me. Marjorie's text arrived at midday as I finished brewing tea and rearranging the lilies that had begun to droop. My old friend never minced words. "Estelle, I was at the country club yesterday." Tessa sat with the tennis ladies. She spoke softly but just loud enough for the whole table. "My mother-in-law has been odd lately. Impulsive spending, not stable since her husband died. We might have to bring in an expert to assess capacity." I froze, the flower stem slipping in my hand. A petal snapped against the crystal with a click. Marjorie lowered her voice. "I'm not telling you to hurt you, but you need to know they're laying the road for a different script." "Thank you," I said. Two small words felt like stones in a dry throat. I hung up and stood still for a long moment, listening to the clock beat against the wall. In my head, the pieces clicked into place. flowers, the handwritten note, the gentle calls were props. They were building a backdrop. We care so much. While up close, they shoved me into the role of unstable mother. I poured more tea. The steam fogged the glass. In that haze, I saw my reflection, no longer trembling. If they wanted to play on the legal field, that's exactly where I'd meet them. That afternoon, I called Dr. Laela Khan, the neurocognitive specialist Harold once mentioned. The assistant asked a few screening questions. The earliest slot was next Wednesday, a half-day comprehensive assessment, memory, attention, executive function, plus a clinical interview. We'll send an official appointment letter and the documents to bring. Thank you, I added clearly, on 6:06. Mrs. Estelle? I took a breath and spoke slowly, word by word. I want to review everything. Every transfer, every authorization, every clause in the trust. I think it's time to turn the page. I hung up, stood, and made another cup of tea. For the first time in years, I didn't feel weak sitting alone. I felt clear, and I knew if my wallet used to be a symbol of love, from today, it would be a symbol of boundaries. The next morning, I went to Harold's Midtown office. That building, marble lobby, a hint of Arabica in the air, was where Grant and I sat with him for years discussing investments. But today wasn't about stocks or returns. Today, I came to take back control. Harold looked at me over half-rimmed glasses, speaking gently. "Are you sure, Estelle? Pausing the automatic transfers will trigger a lot of reactions." I smiled and set my teacup down. Reactions are exactly what I need. No one knows the value of water until it's shut off. I signed the document, stopping all automatic payments. The Westport mortgage, tuition, Tessa's credit cards, even Audrian's living stipend. As of today, that stream would stop. Harold nodded slowly. "I've never seen you this resolute." Maybe because I finally understand love isn't measured by a bank balance. I left the office and stepped onto the street. Early March air, cold and dry, filled my lungs, and I felt strangely light. I didn't say a word to Adrian. No text, no email, no call. They never asked if I was okay. I didn't need to warn them I was about to change. At first, everything was quiet. On the third day, my voicemail filled up. "Mom, I think there's a bank glitch. The mortgage bounced." "Mom, Tessa says her card was declined at the store. Can you check?" "Mom, maybe I messed up the transfer. Could you call Harold?" I listened to all of it and said nothing. Outside, the sky stayed gray, but in my kitchen, the morning light warmed a white porcelain cup. For the first time in years, I didn't feel dragged by guilt. By the sixth day, Adrian's voice lost its calm. "Mom, I called Harold. He said it was on your instruction. Mom, what's happening? Please, at least tell me why." His voice held confusion, anger, and something I hadn't heard in a long time. Fear. I turned on the answering machine and let it record everything. I wanted to hear the shift in tone from certainty to unease to desperation. On the seventh day, exactly 7:30 a.m., hand-pounding hit my door. I checked the clock, straightened my cream cardigan, and put on the pearl necklace Grant gave me on our 25th anniversary. I didn't rush. I walked slowly to the door. Adrian stood there, gaunt face, crooked tie, eyes mixed with anger and worry. Tessa beside him, hair in a tight bun, beige fur coat, gripping a designer bag like she was holding her dignity together. I opened the door, my voice light as if they were visiting on a regular morning. "Good morning, you two. Come in." Adrian strode inside. Tessa followed, lips pressed thin. "Mom, what is going on?" "What do you mean, dear?" I said, calmly pouring coffee. "All the payments have stopped. The mortgage, credit cards, Maya's tuition, everything. The bank says the stop order came from you." "That's right," I said, setting the cup down evenly. "I need to review a few things." Tessa let out a bitter laugh. "You can't just do that. That's our money." I turned and met her eyes. "Sorry, sweetheart, but no. It's money I earned, I manage, and I pay taxes on. You've been beneficiaries, not heirs." The room went heavy. I pulled out a chair, sat at the table, and opened my brown leather notebook full of neat entries. "Adrian, do you know how much I've transferred to your household over 8 years?" "Mom, I didn't count." "I did," I answered, flipping pages, my voice steady. "A total of $1,842,000. That includes tuition, housing, insurance, travel, holidays, birthdays, and that's just the documented amounts." I looked up at the two of them, frozen. "Now, I want you to see another sheet." I slid a printed page from an envelope. "Number of visits to see me in 8 years, 32. Number of calls asking, 'Mom, are you okay?' 7. Number of calls asking for money, transfers, or complaining about expenses, 43. I set the paper down. The rustle sounded loud in the silent kitchen. "See," I said quietly, "this scale has been tilted far too long." Adrian dropped into a chair, fingers in his hair. "Mom, I know I've been careless, but you can't just cut us off like this. The house, the car, the kids' tuition, everything depends on that money." I looked at him, caught between pity and exhaustion. That's exactly why I had to stop. If everything depends on me, you're not the man of your family. Tessa cut in, sharp. "What about this month's mortgage, food, school, the car? How do you expect us to manage?" I stood, walked unhurriedly to the coffee machine. "The way millions of families do, Tessa. Live within your means. Adrian has a job, and you?" I paused and turned and smiled lightly. "You can get one." Tessa glared. She started to speak, then swallowed it. That answer seemed to choke her. I set 2 hot coffees on the table and sat across from them. "I'm not cutting you off. I'm pausing, and I have a proposal." Both looked up. I opened my notebook and pulled out a folded page. "For the next 30 days, I want you to prove I'm still family, not a walking wallet. Not with apologies or gifts, but with simple actions. Call because you want to know how I'm doing. Invite me to dinner for no reason at all. Or send a real card with no transfer request attached." Tessa let out a bitter laugh. "Are you turning love into a test, Mom?" I answered without blinking. "No, I just want to know if there's any love left to save." Adrian looked at his wife, then back at me. "Mom, I promise we'll do better. I know I've forgotten what matters." I nodded. "I hope so. But remember, if I sense this is just acting, just a performance to get the money back, then everything ends for good. No more chances." Silence stretched on. Only the wall clock ticked off each beat. Then Tessa spoke, her voice low, no longer hard. "In the meantime, Estelle, who pays the bills?" I looked at her, my eyes softer, but my tone firm. Someone who spent for 8 years without earning a dollar can certainly learn to spend less for 30 days. And Adrian, I turned to my son, you have a job, a salary. It's time to live on your own steam. I stood, ending the conversation. 30 days after that, I'll decide whether it's worth turning the money back on.
Was crying for the cake, for my son, or for myself. But I knew this. Every illusion had to be thrown out, like that cake. I sat at the table, pulled out my expense notebook, and turned to the old pages. $80,000 for the first divorce fees, $40,000 for the honeymoon, $200,000 for the Westport down payment, $12,000 a year for Maya and Owen's tuition, plus hundreds of thousands more for holidays, gifts, birthdays. I wrote the total, more than $1 million. Next to it, I added a small line, number of times you asked, "Mom, are you okay?" 0. That wasn't just financial math, it was an indictment. Adrian, the boy who once held my hand through Central Park, who promised, "I'll take care of you when I grow up," now called only when he needed money. Tessa, the daughter-in-law who hugged me after the wedding and said, "I'm so happy to have a mom like you," now met me with a cold gaze, a smile on her lips but not in her eyes. At family dinners, I sat at the head of the table while they talked renovations, school choices, vacations, all paid with my money. Yet no one asked my opinion. I'd become a decoration in their lives. My grandkids, Maya, 13, and Owen, 11, were polite and well-mannered, but distant, as if I were a guest. I suspect Tessa taught them, polite is enough. They'd say, "Grandma," and then go back to their phones. I don't blame them. Children reflect what adults teach. I used to think that as long as they were happy, it was fine if I took the loss. But that text was a wake-up call. "Mom, don't contact us anymore." I read it once, twice, 3 times. Each reading sent the pain in reverse, from my heart to my throat, lodging there. In that moment, I understood they didn't need me. They needed my money, and if they could sever things with a text, I had the right to sever back. Not with words, but with action. I stood, went to the kitchen cabinet. In a small metal box under the drawer, I opened the lid. Inside was a mini recorder Grant once gave me in case you ever need proof during negotiations. I placed it beneath the dining table. I knew sooner or later Adrian and Tessa would come back. Not because they missed me, but because of money matters. And when they did, I would let the truth speak for itself. That night, I brewed orange blossom tea and sat by the window, looking down at the street. Below, headlights stretched on, horns blared. People rushed while I sat in an apartment once full of laughter, now hearing only the tick of a clock. Strangely, for the first time in years, I felt clear-headed. Not a wounded mother, but a woman awakening from a long sleep called sacrifice. I looked at Grant's photo and whispered, "You once told me that if someone treats my kindness as a given, I must teach them the value of loss." I smiled and said, "Maybe today is that day." I turned off the lights, leaving only the soft glow of a half-melted birthday candle. Then I opened my notebook and wrote on a fresh page, the Estelle plan, starting today. If someone asked me, "What made you endure all those years?"
I wouldn't answer right away because honestly, I didn't feel like I was enduring, at least not then. I thought I was giving, and in a widowed mother's heart, giving felt like the only way to feel needed. 10 years ago, after Grant passed, my world became too quiet. The Park Avenue apartment, white walls, polished wood floors, once filled with the jazz he played every afternoon, now had only the hiss of the heater. At first, I couldn't stand the silence. I left the TV on all night, kept the hallway lights on, trying to fool myself someone was home. Then Adrian started stopping by more often. My only son, tall with his father's face, a warm voice. Each time he came, the apartment seemed to breathe again. He'd say, "Mom, I don't want you to be lonely. I just need to know you're okay." I believed it. While he talked, I'd pour tea, set out cookies, and feel myself calm. But gradually, those visits began with different openings. "Mom, I've got a little issue at the office." "Mom, my attorney says I need a retainer." "Mom, I'm house hunting, but Westport is expensive." Those moms made me feel useful, and in the emptiness of grief, being needed is a sedative. I wrote checks, made transfers, sent cash, paid bills, not because I was forced, but because I believed love was continuing, just changing shape. I didn't realize the more I gave, the more I erased myself. The Park Avenue apartment, where Grant and I lived more than 30 years, sits along a boulevard washed in lights. Every corner holds a memory. There, I cooked dinner, listened to Grant talk markets, risk, and conviction. He always told me money only matters when it's put in the right place. Estelle, don't let it buy silence. I heard him then, but I didn't understand. Only when I compared it with the Westport house, where I paid nearly all the down payment, did I grasp what it means to buy silence. That house is beautiful, modern, with a wide yard and glass doors opening to a lawn smooth as silk. I remember the first day Adrian and Tessa took me to see it, both of them beaming like kids in a candy shop. "Mom, this is where our kids will grow up. This is our family's home." I smiled and signed a check for $200,000, never reading the small line below, "The sponsor has no ownership rights." After that, every Sunday, I drove nearly an hour from Manhattan to Westport for family dinner. I always brought Tessa's favorite dish, a bottle of wine from Grant's collection, and the hope that there'd be warmth there. But family dinner soon turned into a presentation. Adrian talked work, Tessa discussed redoing the kitchen, switching to Italian floors, repainting the living room. They called it upgrading the space. I knew better than anyone, upgrading with my money. They didn't ask what I wanted to eat, they just asked me to transfer funds before the contractors come this weekend. Each time I smiled, nodded, and drove home in silence. I told myself, it's fine as long as my son is happy. But the truth is, I no longer knew what happiness even meant. My attorney, Harold Benton, was the person Grant trusted most. He helped manage the trust, taxes, and investments. After Grant died, Harold checked in often with updates. "Mrs. Estelle," he once said, "I advise you to keep control. Don't let any expense become automatic." But I had Harold set up monthly transfers for Adrian, living costs, the kids' tuition, and even Tessa's credit cards. I said, "I just want them not to worry." Harold sighed, but did it. Every month, numbers left my accounts automatically, and every month, the bond between me and my son left automatically too. In those 8 years, I helped Adrian save face more times than I can count. When he owed taxes, I wrote a check. When his car got towed for unpaid fees, I paid it. When he forgot Tessa's birthday, I booked the party. When they fought, I watched the kids so they could get a break. And through all those times, no one remembered my birthday.
Year after year, late texts, or sometimes just an emoji. I told myself, young people are busy, that I was asking too much. But there is a limit when you have to light your own birthday candle alone. Every excuse rings hollow. My friend Marjorie Hale, who lives 2 blocks away, once said over tea, Estelle, giving without teaching is harm. You're not helping your son. You're making him believe you're a zero-interest bank. I laughed, sipped tea, and joked, He's still my son, Marjorie. I can't just let him stumble. She looked at me, kind but firm. But if you always catch him, he'll never learn to stand. Back then, I thought she was too strict. Now I know she was right word for word. The warning signs started last year. Adrian visited less, though I'm only an hour away. Whenever I called, he answered shortly, I'm in a meeting. Tessa stayed polite, but her gaze had changed. One evening, when I offered to help fix their pool, she smiled and said, You don't need to worry, Mom. You should focus on your health. Maybe you should let financial professionals manage your assets so you can relax. Her voice was sweet enough that if you didn't listen closely, it sounded caring. But I heard something else, a shady intent under the sugar. That night, I opened my laptop and checked my bank accounts. Transfer steady, month after month, money flowing out like a bottomless river. And I had no idea how long I'd let the river run. I opened my notebook and began listing every gift from the last 8 years. Columns of numbers stretched on. Nearly 2 million.
Mom, don't contact us anymore. Our whole family needs space. The text from my son arrived on the night of my 67th birthday, right as I was setting a chocolate mousse cake, his childhood favorite, on the dining table. I had waited for him all day. Every time a car passed, I looked up. Every time my phone buzzed, I let myself hope. And then what I got was a cold sentence passed on a mother's love. The doorbell rang. My daughter-in-law stood there with a blade-thin smile and a folder in her hand. Guardianship papers. Sign them so I can take better care of you. I looked into her eyes, and in that instant, I understood. What they wanted to keep wasn't me. It was the $50 million I control. Sign. No. I smiled, opened a drawer, and pressed the tiny recorder button under the wooden table. They didn't know that the very moment they thought they were cutting me out was when I began erasing them from my life.